Welcome to the last chapter of Hank, the anti-robot squad sergeant from Last Planet. So we've really shown everything here in like a super detailed step by step, and the last thing that is missing is the blade. The blade will be done in a very different approach, so we will first start building up texture and then refining the whole thing with thin glazes. And I think we can achieve a really awesome non-metallic look for such a large surface. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for your support.
Alright, welcome to the chapter of the blade. You can see the blade is just in black foundation. It's quite nice because it's just smooth and we don't have like any visible grain. As we're going for non-metal, I think this will be quite interesting. So you can see here on the palette we have dark sea blue, and we'll mix it with some black. And we also added the phthalo green from Joe Sonia's, but we will introduce that later. And here for the blade, we're going for quite an experimental approach. So we're having like the white on the tip of the brush for like a loaded brush. But we will just introduce like a bit of texture and highlight at the same time. So the highlight here, for example, to be quite prominent here around the corner, and we're just working here quite random, quite wet, to get like that coffee stain like look that we actually often want to avoid. But here we will use it to create like an interesting pattern on the steel. Also down here, here. Okay, so you can see it's super rough, very wild, but we will use all that random texture created to work out an interesting texture and then focus on the highlights afterwards. Okay, so we will let that dry and we'll be back to refine the highlights. Okay, I also turned the blade around and did the same to the other side, because this will be the side visible later on the model. I think I will just continue working on that side here on cam. So you can see we have like a very interesting pattern here, but here it loses the effect. So we'll continue, just do the same again. Alright, so far so interesting from the look, and I think it's quite interesting. You can play around until you really like the texture. So, but for me this is just perfect to continue. So we will use some of the dark sea blue black mix, and we'll use it in like quite a heavy, between heavy and medium base tone consistency. We will apply that here and just feather it out to establish a shadow here. with a bit of black, thinned down to like a medium glaze. You can just get like a strong visible line here. And now with just some dark sea blue, very thin down on the back brush and some white to the tip. You can use that here on that edge to get the highlight. And you can see how I'm trying to not pull the brush to get like a nice clean blending, but I try to still continue with that textured look. Okay, and also here on the other side. And you can really see how we can slowly start incorporating that texture and really getting still quite an interesting metallic look. So it's adding some small highlights here on those cracks. And yeah, that is actually like for this step. This is how we continue on the whole blade. Let me just glaze here like a little bit over a larger area just to show you how to bring up like also these parts here. So you can see here we want like a separation between the blade and the upper edge. So I first glazed with some lighter color here on the top edge to make that more visible. And then just with a little bit of the darker color. And you can see how you can really start building up sharp edges with like having that subtle texture underneath. Okay, let me just continue with the refining of the lights here on the lower side, and we'll be back to do the detailing here. Okay. Alright, so you can see I continued with the highlights here on the lower side, and this part here already works pretty well, and also with the highlights here on the top, it gets quite metallic. So let's see how we can push those small highlights. So we're first starting with some pure titanium white, and we just dot in our main light reflex here. Okay, and with a bit of the light blue here to the side. Okay, and with a bit of the pure dark sea blue. You can really see by just adding these reflexes here how much more metallic it looks. They're yet quite rough, but we can continue detailing that later on. So I just want to bring up the surface here around it. And this way we really get also the upper edge really clearly visible. Alright, so you can see I continued with highlight and scratches, and I think it already looks pretty good and pretty interesting. I really like the texture, but I still want to get like a little bit variation in the colors here because it's such a large surface. So you can see on the palette I've added a bit of Monocolor Light Turquoise. We'll just use that as a very thin glaze. And I also put the blade on the model again to really see where we're going with the color nuances here. Because we don't want the blade to pop out too much. Okay, and here with just a clean brush, feathering that out. A bit more blue in the mix. Oh, that was almost too much. So I don't want the highlight to be really all that blue, so gotta be careful here. But that looks quite good. Here in the back I've also added some of the phthalo green from Joe Sonia, and it's a very interesting paint, and we used that for the goggles, so I want to have like a little bit of that tone also in here. Clean brush and feathering that out. Okay. And a little bit of the Armor Brown and black mix here for the very dark shadows up here. Just place it in the shadows, and then I'm feathering it out with the wet brush. Okay, and also a little bit here, also in a light glaze consistency. And with a bit of the green, I'm just feathering that out here. think the play with the tones now is really interesting, and it really helps also to get that blade look more sharp in the metallic definition. Alright, so for this part here I will continue like we did here on the back part. So first with an orange-brown foundation and then dabbing on the chipped off color on top. Okay, so I will do that off cam because it's the very same as before, so we'll be back for some finishing touches. So yeah, here we are with the finished blade, and I think it works really well together with the rusted part and the non-metal part. I really don't think it needs any adjustments, we can just leave it like that. And yeah, thanks for following the journey here for our anti-robot squad sergeant from Nuts Planet. And I hope you enjoyed seeing everything in such detail. So yeah, thanks for your support, and now time to enjoy the turntable of our bust.